Welcome, welcome, welcome. This week I'm going to take the doodles that I showed you how to paint last week, and don't worry, I will link that in the description below and show you how to make a nice pretty fall wreath with those doodles. And in this video I'm just going to give you some tips on what to do. If we haven't met, I'm Viv and welcome to Art with Viv. I will just give you some tips on how to use these doodles to make a nice fall wreath. Here's the doodles we did last week. I'll link that video in the description below and try to link it in the little card at the top so that you can go and review those. Now, since I've already taught these doodles, I've already taught you how to do these individually, I'm not gonna dwell on how to do each one of these objects. It's already been done, so I've sped up the video quite a bit. I'm going to work on giving you some tips about how to arrange your wreath when you do, arrange your doodles around the wreath as you do it. You can use this you can make this as large or as small as you'd like. You can use it as home decor. You can frame it. You could use it as a card if you'd like. It'd make a great design for that. Or you could take these doodles and make other things out of them as well. And I made a turkey place setting like a little card for Thanksgiving. It was a little turkey place setting. I'll link that one in the description below too, since Thanksgiving is just around the corner, so you can see that. So now my first thing that I did with this wreath is I made two ovals. I made a large oval and then I made a smaller oval on the inside of that, and that gave me a thick band around that oval form that I wanted to fill up with these fall doodles. I'm using this huge pumpkin here. This is going to anchor and be the focal point for my wreath. Now you see I'm doing the wet on wet technique. I'm wetting each section as I go, then just dropping in the paint, letting the water spread the paint, and then really going back in with more paint where I want that pumpkin to be darker, just dropping more paint into those areas. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do those mushrooms, and I did a little purple to begin with. That's sort of just to give it a little extra pizzazz. You'll want to mix your cool and warm colors together, warm being red, yellow, orange. Now, I don't mean mix them together as in actually mix that color paint together. I mean, you'll want some of your objects to be warm and some of your objects to be cool. So I put a little bit of purple in those mushrooms. And now I'm going ahead and painting a maple leaf. Again, I've already shown you in another video how to do these. They're really not anything difficult. They're not even detailed. All it is basically is you are painting a shape. You're keeping it wet and you're dropping different colors in and letting those colors mixed right on the paper. So it's not even really a whole lot of work. You could wet that leaf first, that leaf shape. And what I did was I just went around the edge with some deep red and then a little bit of yellow, and then I topped it off with green. Now I've got another little smaller pumpkin here. I let that big pumpkin dry. That's important. Now don't do your objects right next to each other and try to paint them right next to each other, or they'll bleed in. Let one object dry before you come back to draw the object that is right next to it. That'll avoid any kind of bleeding amongst your objects. We don't like bleeding amongst our objects. We want our objects to stay bleed free, if at all possible. And I chose sort of a bluish green for this, just to kind of contrast with that orange. Blue and orange are complementary colors. They look really good next to each other. I took a little bit of burnt sienna, which has a rusty red look to it. It has a nice rusty red undertone. It is brown, but it still has that nice warm undertone, and put it right over the purple, giving it just a little bit more detail and just a little extra something. Now I'm coming in with the oak leaf. I'm painting it with some different shades of yellows and letting those blend together. You can either wet the paper with clean water first and then start putting your paint in and letting that water do the work, or you can put a paint color in and then drop another color right into that paint color and let those mix and mingle, or right beside of that paint color, and just let them mix on their own. Don't mix them with the tip of your brush because that can make them get muddy. Just let the water do the work, let the paint do its thing. So I'm working my way around. What I want to do is paint out the largest objects first. So as I work around my wreath, I'm going to just paint like the largest leaves, the largest pumpkins, the largest shapes. And then once I get the wreath filled up all the way around with the really large shapes, I'm going to come back in with some fillers and do like smaller foliage, smaller leaf shapes. And in some areas, just to fill up space, I'm going to just put some dots because it's my wreath and I'm going to do it like I want to. You do your wreath like you want to. That's the beauty of art. You can do it the way you want and nobody can tell you nothing because it's yours. I mean, they could try, but you just tell them to let them be them and you be you and everybody be happy. But I am going to put some dots in. But it is a good rule of thumb to put your largest objects in first, the ones that are going to be, sort of the biggest ones. They're easiest to paint. You'll hurry up and fill that space up around your wreath, fill that paper in, and then just come back in with smaller details, smaller leaves, smaller foliage, and that will really help you out to remember that. To do large first and then do your small, and have something to sort of anchor your wreath at the bottom or to the side. I chose a big fat pumpkin, but you could do a big cluster of leaves. You could do a big cluster of acorns depending on what doodles you decide to put in your wreath. You could have a big old batch of mushrooms right there where I've got my pumpkin, or somewhere close to that area. You could do a bow if you wanted. I just wasn't in the mood for a bow. So let your imagination just run wild and do whatever you want to satisfy your own inner creative spirit and your own sense of style. So I'm doing some more maple leaves. I think I got a little crazy with the maple leaves on this one. I was just doing maple leaves everywhere. Mix yours up, vary it a little bit more, or you can do the whole thing in maple leaves and pumpkins. You could pick 2 doodles and just do those all the way around. It's really up to you, but it'll come out pretty no matter what you do, as long as you just stick to your own style and, follow some of the rules, like don't paint 2 objects that are right beside each other while they're wet because they could bleed. Now here I'm adding a little bit more of green pumpkin. I've noticed that I've got really heavy on the warm colors, really heavy on the orange and the yellows and the reds. So I'm trying to add in a little bit more purple in my mushrooms and some green in this pumpkin, this little small pumpkin here. I don't know. I just keep coming back to the orange and the red for some reason. It's just on my mind. I'm attracted to it, and I just keep probably overusing it, but it's okay because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to fix my little red mania, my little red and orange mania that I had as I was doing this. Another tip is you could please turn your paper around if you need to reach something and you don't want to swipe through wet paint. Turn your paper upside down, turn it any kind of way that you need to, so that you can paint comfortably and so that you're not running your hand through paint that's you just painted and is still wet. Now I did that little squash up there. He's half yellow, half green. I also let some of that base color yellow shine through on that squash. So looks like he has stripes on him. Then I've jumped over here. I've got a little green gold on my acorns and a little bit of raw sienna on the caps, and then I went ahead and put some orange and yellow on those oak leaves. Got my purple, trusty purple for those mushrooms up there, and I'm starting to realize that I've got way too much warm and not enough cool color. So I decided to pop some green in there with my yellow on that oak leaf there. And I'm using some burnt sienna for the stems, really watered down. I decided to come over here and make another small little maple leaf kind of behind that one, because I'm noticing that, one side is thicker than the other on my oval wreath. So I'm trying to fill that in. Then I decide, I'll just fill it in with smaller objects. Once I get these big ones in, I'm doing another leaf up here, and this time I've started with some sap green, and then I just put in some yellow and then red on the very tips. I've got my little acorns up there, and I'm doing that nice green gold with my acorns, and then starting to cover it with burnt sienna and then a little burnt umber for the darkest colors. And I'm just getting in all these leaves, and they are just, I'm continuing with the orange for whatever reason. So please have a better plan than I did and mix your warm and cool colors up. Like, don't have all orange leaves like I do. Make some of your leaves green, maybe some of them with a little bit of blue in there, and that'll help your eye rest, because all that red is a little bit much. All that red and orange, it's a little bit much for your eye. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to mix up a nice blue green, and that's what I'm going to use for my filler foliage. I've got some eucalyptus that I'm going to paint in right here by this pumpkin. Eucalyptus is simple. It's just circles right beside of each other going down an imaginary stem. Or you could do whatever kind of leaf shape that you want. I just decided to do some eucalyptus, kind of stick it out from behind my pumpkin. And I'm going to start going around and sort of tucking in here and there into some of the more bare areas this nice, beautiful blue-green. It really helps with all that bright orange. It gives your eye a place to rest from all that warm color, and it acts as a really good complement to the reds and the oranges. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just tucking in all of my little green leaves here and there and filling up the spaces. I'm just filling up the spaces in between all my different larger objects. You can also add some yellow green in there, and even though yellow green is more of a warm green, it's still green, so it's still considered a cool color in the cool family, especially for our purposes. So you can also change the shades of green you use. You could use some blue. You can make some blue leaves and just do whatever you want, but I'm telling you, have a variety of warm and cool colors in your fall wreath. It will help your eye out immensely. Now, you don't have to. If you want that completely warm look, that's up to you. I don't like that. It's a little bit too heavy for my eye. I like to have places for my eye to rest. So I am putting in those little cool accents, leaves, all in the different spots so that I can have a place to rest my eye. And it also is a beautiful complement to the warm colors. And I'm really enjoying this. I really am happy with the way that it is coming out. I'm just adding a few veins. Once everything is dry, you can go back and add a few veins to the leaves. You can add a few shadows into some of the smaller leaves just by adding a darker color or the same color in spots, because once you put another layer of color, it's going to darken it in that spot wherever you put it. So I'm just adding a little darker details. I forgot to paint in my acorn up here, so I'm coming in with some darker browns and getting that cap painted. But again, I will link that doodle one in the comments so that you can go look at the original doodle one. Thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me in the comments what you'd like me to paint next. Share this with a friend, and I will see you soon.